Dear colleagues, dear Deputy Minister, dear Special Envoy, members of the committee, friends from Ukraine, when the Russian Federation launched the full-scale aggression of Ukraine, the European Committee of the Regions and all cities and regions in the European Union stood by Ukrainian people. We are gathered here in Mons 2 years and 24 days after the day that changed the history of our continent and the world. EU cities and regions have responded with solidarity and assistance to our fellow Ukrainian partners. We have provided supplies and materials, and we are welcoming displaced Ukrainian women, children and elderly, providing health services, education, housing and employment. The COR, among other initiatives, has organized summer camps for Ukrainian children, and I am proud we will do it again this year. In Ukraine, local and regional councils have been doing an amazing job of providing emergency support and of keeping basic services running. They have shown courage, resilience and innovation. To see your work, as I have myself seen in Kyiv, is humbling and inspiring and painfully moving. Your role has been vital for your people, and it will be even more for the future of your country. Likewise, we cannot manage the task of reconstruction without cities and regions. We mobilize European cities to help Ukraine recover from the war. Embracing this idea, the European Committee of the Regions launched the European Alliance of Cities and Regions for the Reconstruction of Ukraine, together with all the partners present here today, and that I want to warmly thank them. The aim of the Alliance is to advocate for a reconstruction that includes the participation of local and regional authorities, and our work has been proven successful. I welcome that the Lugano Ukraine Recovery Conference clearly referred to the importance of local self-governance, effective decentralization, and democratic participation of the population in the recovery process. Those Lugano principles should be our compass and must be further developed in Berlin. I am proud to present to you today the recommendations of the European Alliance of Cities and Regions for the Reconstruction of Ukraine to the Ukraine Recovery Conference. They are built on 4 guiding principles: unwavering support for Ukraine's territorial integrity, sovereignty and unity, a bottom-up approach, no one size fits all approach coming from the central government only, but a place-based design of the reconstruction agenda itself and then implementation. Local ownership will be essential to make the reconstruction a sustainable success. Good local and regional governance. This is an essential element also on the way to EU accession. The reconstruction is an opportunity, if we may consider that, to empower local and regional governments and to pursue the decentralization reform. And finally, build back better. It is essential that the reconstruction efforts have a sustainable, green, smart and inclusive approach. To conclude, I would like to stress that we will stand with Ukraine, whatever it takes and as long as it takes. You are not alone in this fight. This is our common fight. I would like to ask all the partners of the Alliance to solemnly endorse the recommendations to the Ukraine Recovery Conference. And I am thrilled to hand them to the governments of Ukraine and Germany, who will co-host the Ukraine Recovery Conference in June. Thank you so much.
Thank you. What an exciting moment for us to be publishing new recommendations. The recommendations, by the way, are published now on the Alliance webpage in 4 languages, so you are very welcome to take a look at the recommendations. Now, next, I would kindly like to invite Deputy Minister of Ukraine, Alexander Kubrakov, to deliver a message to our session. Deputy Minister, Prime Minister, greetings from Mons, and thank you for availability to address our session. You will be joining us online. We are very glad to see you, and welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Dear Mr. President Cordero, dear colleagues, dear friends, thank you for the opportunity to address the participants of 10th European Summit of Regions and Cities to express sincere gratitude from Ukrainian people for your assistance and support. For the past 2 years, Ukraine has faced the greatest challenges in our history, military aggression of Russia. However, Ukraine possessed a secret weapon that is only possible in democratic states. This is strong civil society, and this is effective local self-governance. Even during a full-scale war, we have continued the decentralization reform. We have 3 key directions of our work. First, it's completion of decentralization reform via introduction of administrative supervision over the legality of decisions of local self-government bodies, ensuring the separation of own and delegated powers of local self-government bodies, strengthening the financial capacity of local self-governments, along with increasing the transparency and accountability of their work. Associations of local self-governments, experts, government, and members of the parliament, we agreed on the reform priorities in the decentralization reform roadmap, which will be shortly adopted by the Cabinet of Ministers. Second direction, strengthening the role of communities in recovery and restoration. In 2023 and 2024, we managed to allocate $1.7 billion for the local and regional restoration. Major parts of these funds were Russian assets which were available and arrested in Ukraine. The other half, it mostly European Investment Bank loans. Thanks to the Ukraine facility, Ukraine communities will get at least 20% of the grant money from the European Union for the restoration, modernization and development of their infrastructural projects. We are working closely with local self-governments, associations to build transparent rules of projects prioritization based on the principles of European Union policy. However, given the amount of destruction and the growing needs for reconstruction, it is important for us to jointly advance the issues of unblocking Russian assets and directing them to the defense and restoration of Ukraine. Third direction, strengthening regional development. We updated state strategy for regional development till 2027 to align regional priorities with Ukraine plan, adapt the existing strategy to the realities of the war, and start adapting Ukrainian regional policy to the instruments of European Union. With the Ukraine facility support, Ukrainian regional policy has a chance for the proper reboot based on the bottom-up, data-driven approach. We welcome the initiative of the Joint Consultative Committee between Ukraine and European Committee of the region as a consistent and stable form of the cooperation with the local and regional authorities of member states. With the hope that such instrument will provide for strengthening the capacity of local self-governance of Ukraine on our way to the European Union. With the support of European partners, we are actively working to meet Ukraine's obligation under enlargement report and European integration in general. We are grateful to the citizens and institutions of European Union for their comprehensive support. In Ukraine, it is said that true friends are recognized at times of difficulty. President Cordero, today, with your support, I want to once again thank all representatives of regional and local authorities of Europe and all those who care, who have been helping us fight for our shared democratic values over the past 755 days. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you very much for joining us, Diakuyu Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Kuprakov. We now have another video message from the Federal Minister for Economic Cooperation and Development, Svenja Schulze.
Dear supporters and friends of Ukraine, during Russia's war of aggression, Ukraine and its people have continuously shown their strength and resilience. Germany will stand by our Ukrainian neighbors in rebuilding what has been destroyed by the war, in building it back better. For example, the water company of the city of Dresden is currently supporting the water company in Lviv, and together they are creating a business model that is financed entirely by the tariffs paid by users. As a result, in future, the water company in Lviv will be able to operate much more efficiently and without state subsidies. The water sector is an example of the decentralization reform launched by the Ukrainian government in 2014. And this reform is successful because it gives greater power and resources to local self-government. Since the beginning of the war, local self-government has proven to be the cornerstone of resilience. Municipalities bear a large part of the burden when it comes to dealing with the destruction of civilian infrastructure and housing. Strong local self-government also strengthens democracy and paves the way for accession to the European Union. To further support municipalities and regions in rebuilding Ukraine, our countries are jointly hosting this year's Ukraine Recovery Conference in Berlin on 11th and 12th June. Together with our partners, we want to discuss topics such as transparency and integrity. We want to brainstorm ideas about sustainable urban development and how it can be based on renewable energy. We will be looking for ways of giving more power to local self-governments. Our joint goal is to mobilize a broad alliance of communities that will empower Ukraine to shoulder the weight of reconstruction. I look forward to seeing you in Berlin in June.
Thank you, Minister, for your strong message to us today. Now we move
Dear
into the next
supporters,
second section of our Agora meeting today, and I would like to invite next to host the panel Mr. Dario Nardella, Mayor of Firenze and Committee of the Regions Rapporteur on the Ukraine Facility. Hello.
Hello. Good morning to everybody, and thank you to President Vasco Cordero for inviting me here. We are starting our second session of this important meeting, and we have now an intervention by the storyteller, our great host, our friend, the mayor of Kiev, Vitaly Klitschko, who is speaking from Kiev. Hello, Vitaly.
Hello, Dario. Great to see you. Great to see you all, friends of Ukraine, dear President of European Committee of Region.
Thank you, Vitaly. I'm sorry, I would like to reiterating our full solidarity with the brave Ukrainian people We again stand with you in the fight for freedom and dignity and democracy, our common European values. You are responsible for Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, that suffered and continues to suffer so many attacks by the Russian invaders. And you are running the largest all-Ukrainian association of cities. And I would like also remember our great friendship, because Florence and Kiev are sister cities since 1965. And please let us know what is the situation today and how can our cities and regions in European Union help in these difficult times and for the reform, recovery and reconstruction of your country. And welcome again, dear Vitaly.
Dear Dario Nardella, great to see you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm very happy to participate in our very important meeting. Dear President of European Committee of Region, Vasco Cardero, members of European Parliament, members of Council of Europe. I'm online with you today, but in the room with your chairs, the regional officers of the Association of Ukrainian City. Right now, also a lot of friends in Friends of Ukraine. Everybody come together, and also representative of Ukrainian cities, City Association of Ukraine, the regional officer of Association of Ukrainian Cities, Mayor of Vinnytsia, Sergei Morgunov, the head of UC municipality of Kakhovka, the head of military administration, Vitaly Nemerets, and the mayor of Ingulka village municipality, Alla Murnova. Thanks each and every one of you participate in the Work for Ukrainian panel for the European Summit of Region and Cities. All of you help, and you help to Ukraine and defend against Russian aggression and prepare for the future recovery. It's very important. It's very important for us. We have a couple of points we prepare for that. In self-government, take very important role right now to defend our homeland against Russian aggression. We support our military forces. We give everything to support our soldiers. Just in our city, more than 100 citizens take the military uniform, take the weapons, and go to the front line to defend our homeland. Exactly the same situation in every region, in every village. We're fighting right now to survive, and that's why it's very important to unity with municipality and support, to give support to our soldiers, to family of our soldiers, and everyone have to be sure the family supported, the family staying safe, villages safe, city, because safety right now the main question for everyone in Ukraine. We also responsible for to deliver services to everyone in our cities, in our villages, in our regions. And we give the services, education, medical care, public transportation. Everything is our responsibility. It's very unusual and very difficult situation because the economy doesn't work well and infrastructure is destroyed, but we do it everything, and very important to be strong, not just in the front line, also inside the country, strong. Very important to be, because Russians never expect the weak position, and that's why we do it everything to delivery services to everyone in Ukraine, and also very important, the economy have to work in Ukraine. We make reconstruction because right now, because it's not secret. The Russians destroyed our critical infrastructure, our cities. It's not the war, it's not the special operation, it's terrorism. Because no explanation was the reason to destroy the power station, to let people freezing in the winter, to live without water, without electricity, without services. And that's why it's very important immediately to make a reconstruction. And we want to say thank you for everyone who helped Ukraine to make, to be strong, to be resistant. And we prepare right now a lot of projects for the future, for future recovering.
Yes.
And future recovering, we have to be prepared for future recovering and to make reform. To make reform in Ukraine, because it's the main point in this senseless war. We Ukrainians want to be the part of European family. Where the human rights play a very important role, and we have to do it everything and make a reform. And also one of the main, very important reform, the base of democracy, is self-government reform. And without we do that with our concept and together with ambassador of J7, and prepare right now with the city of station concept with our partners, because it's not secret. We need help. We need your assistance to make reform. Without your assistance, it will be almost impossible to build European country, and that we counted in every one of you.
Thank you.
I want to say the Association of Ukrainian cities prepared the concept for recovery, for self-government in Ukraine. And in this way, I want to say thank you very much for Professor Georg Midbrand for his engagement. For the we prepared the next, we prepared the text for the concept. The Council of European Municipalities and Region in the Congress of Region and Local Authorities of the Council of Europe. And we are ready to present this concept in conference in Berlin, for which we are preparing jointly with the alliance of the Committee of the Region. Yeah. We have prepared the recommendation for the Berlin conference together, and that's why we support them. Ukraine local self-government has many voices. This now we're different from Russia, from regime of dictatorship. We must show development of one position by many voices. And it's our principle. And it's very important to build together a concept and prepare to rebuild Ukraine after the war. The main wish for every citizen of Ukraine, for every our partners, to do it everything to stop the war, to win the war, and without your help we can't do that. And that's why I want to say thank you very much, 1,000 times thank you for everyone who support Ukraine. Together we're strong, and self-government, the base of democracy in every country, and we do that together. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Vitaly, and we are thanking you for your very strong words, and you are writing history with your heroic resistance, and you can rest assured that we will continue supporting you today and in the future. And at the Committee of Regions, including through the Opinion of the Ukrainian Facility, for which I was the rapporteur, we have underlined the need to assist financially Ukraine in the coming years and asked for additional support for capacity building of local and regional authorities and the development and strengthening of international partnership. I remember very well the meeting with President Cordero in Brussels with the mayor of Kiev, Klitschko, a few months after the invasion of Ukraine. And now we are stronger than the past. And we have now a good basis to proceed. And we wish to Klitschko good luck and Slava Ukraina. So, so now, dear colleagues, we are about to watch a last video message from the European Commissioner for Neighbourhood and Enlargement, Oliver Verhey, and then I will ask to the panelists to join me here.
Dear President, members of the European Alliance of Cities and Regions for the Reconstruction of Ukraine, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to address the 10th European Summit of Regions and Cities, which is specially dedicated to the recovery of Ukraine. Therefore, I welcome extended invitation to local leaders from Ukraine for today's conference. So let me first praise the role that the Ukrainian municipalities have played to maintain the resilience of Ukraine during the Russian war of aggression. These municipalities were instrumental in mobilizing support. They were resetting basic social services to address the fundamental needs of Ukrainians. They were helping to organize voluntary territorial defense. And last but not least, they were instrumental in receiving large numbers of internally displaced persons. Besides all the dramatic events and heroic fight, we have also seen so many heartening examples of Ukrainian and EU municipalities and regions entering into partnerships to organize support, first on humanitarian, then on the reconstruction track. The European Alliance of Cities and Regions is a great example of this partnership. Created right after Ukraine received EU candidate status and brought together EU and Ukrainian associations of local and regional authorities, this alliance can make a difference in these challenging times. Dear ladies and gentlemen, as we go along, the role of local self-government will be essential for two strategic procedures in Ukraine: the EU enlargement and the recovery process. On the first strand, in November last year, the Commission published its first report on Ukraine as a candidate country. Decentralization and regional development feature very prominently in this document. On the second strand, I am proud to speak about the Ukraine facility worth 50 billion euros, which was just put into operation. This facility ensures a steadfast and predictable funding for Ukraine and shows that the EU is taking leadership and responsibility in the recovery and reconstruction of the country. One of the objectives of this instrument is the support for decentralization and local development. So throughout the implementation of this facility, an inclusive and active engagement of municipalities will be required. Moreover, the Ukraine facility includes in detail the obligations on the share of financial support to be allocated to subnational authorities. Dear ladies and gentlemen, it all confirms one thing: local level is and will be instrumental for the effective recovery and reconstruction process in Ukraine. And to make it a success, we need to help further to build capacities of the Ukrainian municipalities to unleash their potential and to help them remain a solid pillar of these demanding processes. To conclude, the Commission is working full speed to stand by you and to provide tangible support, both on strategic and on operational level. For example, through the EU flagship decentralization project, the 178 million euros worth You Lead with Europe program. I wish you a productive discussion, and I want to thank you for your attention.
Thank you to the European Commissioner Varhey. And before to engage in discussion, our panelists, we have another speech online. I would like to thank the European Commission for the recognition of the role of our alliance. And now we have Oleksiy Kuleba, the Executive Secretary of the Presidium of the Congress of Local and Regional Authorities and the President of Ukraine. So I'm inviting Oleksiy Kuleba for this online connection.
Dear participants of the European Summit of Regions and Cities, dear colleagues and friends, today I would like to greet the European Committee of the Region with its 30th anniversary. This date once again shows how important local and regional authorities are in Europe. It is very symbolic that today the reconstruction of Ukrainian cities is at the center of our common attention. This is a big challenge for our countries and their institutions. We all see the extermination war of the Russians against our cities, our Ramadas, and our people every day. All these 755 days and 10 years in general, Russia continues to kill people, destroy infrastructure, and bring chaos, sorrow, disaster, and death. And we are grateful that in these difficult times, the European Committee of the region show unwavering and growing support for Ukraine, both moral and practical. Committee condemns crimes against civilians and promotes Ukraine's European integration efforts, and we highly value the leadership of the committee in mobilizing European Union region and establishing the European Alliance for the reconstruction of Ukraine. Now we need to empower the alliance. We think that it can become an effective platform where our municipalities and region can interact. Similar practices have already shown their effectiveness in Ukraine. They need to overcome the consequences of this destruction and strengthening of local authorities led us to create the Congress of the Local and Regional Authorities. Currently, the state program called Side by Side is operating in Ukraine. This is a practice when different oblast administrations take responsibility for the reconstruction of different frontline gramadas. Such a program unites the country and creates a mechanism for our wide exchange of experience. In addition, we encourage European Union states, regions and cities to join our President's initiative to establish patronage on certain Ukrainian region and help with reconstruction and recovery issues. Recognize that the leadership role of the Alliance of Cities and Regions in supporting the recovery of Ukraine, and we deeply appreciate the invitation of the President of the Committee to open offices of our Romadas and Oblast in the premises of the committee in Brussels. For us, this is another step towards new opportunities, and for you, this is a unique experience that Europe has not had since the Second World War. We plan to hold the second annual International Summit of Cities and Regions in Ukraine. We see three tasks in its focus. The first is a continuation of the European integration of Ukrainian Oblast and Romadas, with the development of cross-border cooperation and the establishment of closer horizontal ties. The second is the development of joint projects to support internally displaced persons. And the third is the development of our network of centers for rehabilitation, prosthetics, surgery and psychological support for Ukrainian defenders and all those affected by the Russian-Ukraine war. We appreciate 10-point support package to Ukraine, which was adopted by their first meeting of the working group on Ukraine in the committee. We hope that we will continue to cooperate with the committee and together will manage to implement all initiatives which were mentioned in this plan and create a joint consultative committee. I think it's very important to establish training programs and secondment for local and regional officials for Ukraine line ministry staff, as well as civil servants from local and regional authorities. Ukraine proves that it's possible and necessary to deepen reforms even in condition of war. During all 10 years of aggression, we have deepened decentralization, and this is a rather unique case in the world. It's not for us to decide what happened in our time, the classics say, but we decide what to do with the time that is given us. And war, despite its consequences and destruction, is also an opportunity for us. Ukraine has chosen its path. We're reviving and implementing reforms despite grief and trouble. We're guided by common European best achievements and practices. In particular, we believe that people living in their grandmothers should participate in their reconstruction, because they will raise their children and plan their future there. Ukraine is fighting for European values, for democracy, for welfare, for independence, and we need your help. Ukraine will win because it's not fighting alone, but with the help of reliable friends, including your help. And that deserves special thanks, dear friends. Thank you for your attention. Wishing you a fruitful session and productive decisions that will bring our joint victory closer. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you. Thank you for this important contribution by Alexei Kuleba. And after this important description, we are aware about how important is the recognition of the role of our alliance and for Ukraine facility that ensures predictable and sustainable financial assistance up to 50 billion euros until 2027. I take the opportunity to welcome also last week's proposals of a negotiating framework with the guidelines and principles for the accession negotiating with Ukraine. And we look forward to their adoption by the member states in the Council and to the start of the accession negotiations, if it's possible, still under the Belgian presidency. And now, without further ado, let's engage in the discussion, our panelists, and I'm honored to introduce you our panelists, starting from Olena Shuliak, Ms. Olena Shuliak, Chairperson of the Committee of Reorganization of State Power, Local Self-Government, Regional Development and Urban Planning, Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, Professor Georg Melbrat, Special Envoy of the German Government to Ukraine for Decentralization, Viola von Kramon-Taubadel, Vice Chair of the European Parliament Delegation to the EU-Ukraine Parliamentary Association Committee. Then we have Mr. Mark Kolz, bonsoir, President of the Congress of Local and Regional Authorities, Matt Chase, the CEO, Executive Director of the U.S. National Association of Counties, and Dorothée Alain-Dupré, Head of the Division for Regional Development and Multi-Level Governance. Applause for our panelists. Thank you to be here. So I would like to start. You have 3 minutes and then 2 other minutes to continue with possible questions. And I kindly ask you to stay in time. So Ms. Shuliak, in your capacity as a chair of the Parliamentary Committee of the Negotiation, you're following closely the legislative developments while understanding the current difficulties, international partners of Ukraine and our alliance recommendations underline the importance of decentralization, of the strengthening the resilience of the country, and insist on the completion of local self-government reforms. So could you please update us on the work of the Verkhovna Rada in this respect?
Доброго дня, шановні друзі, шановні колеги.
Dear guests, dear colleagues, it is a great honor to be here on the stage and to represent the Ukrainian Parliament, which has a leading role in implementing all our European accession obligations. Decentralization reform is one of that. Ukraine has achieved a lot of success despite waging a full-scale war, and the past 2 years have demonstrated courage, resilience, and efficiency of our authorities. Our government and our parliament have a special task to continue with the reform of decentralization. We, as legislators, set a few important tasks before ourselves. Number one, our municipalities have received
децентралізації нам потрібно підійти до питання відповідальності, який виражається саме в тому, щоб на законодавчому рівні прийняти відповідні законопроекти, які б запроваджували інститут нагляду над законністю рішень органів місцевого самоврядування. Ми дуже вдячні нашим партнерам Раді Європи, які вже майже 2 роки є певним модератором всіх процесів, різних діалогів з нашими стейкхолдерами, з асоціаціями місцевого самоврядування для того, щоб саме цей законопроект нарешті був винесений до зали. Наступне завдання, яке перед собою ставить парламент, це розмежувати повноваження між органами державної влади і органами місцевого самоврядування для того, щоб забезпечити фінансову стійкість, щоб наші органи місцевого самоврядування могли якісно виконувати делеговані функції. Звичайно, перед парламентом стоїть і третє завдання – забезпечити таку міцну стійкість фінансових бюджетів на місцевому рівні для того, щоб органи місцевого самоврядування не страждали від фінансової вразливості. Ну і, звичайно, четверте завдання. Нам би дуже хотілося, щоб кожний мешканець нашої громади, щоб кожний представник бізнесу, чи кожний представник громади або громадянського суспільства обов'язково приймав участь у всіх процесах, які пов'язані з відновленням і відбудовою. На сьогодні в парламенті знаходиться вже 3 законопроекти, які будуть винесені до сесійної зали, які стосуються і нових інструментів місцевої демократії, і публічних консультацій, і нових підходів до роботи органів самоорганізації населення. А буквально декілька тижнів тому парламент України прийняв відповідне законодавство, яке дозволить органам місцевого самоврядування працювати в більш прозорий спосіб. А всі ці завдання, які я зараз перелічила, вони допоможуть виконати і ті зобов'язання, які ми читаємо в звіті про розширення для України на 23-й рік, і, звісно, виконати положення, які зафіксовані в Європейській хартії місцевого самоврядування. На сьогодні для нас реформа нашої державної регіональної політики також залишається у фокусі уваги. Ми всі знаємо, що на сьогодні територія України поділена на певні функціональні типи, і під особливою увагою будуть залишатися саме території відновлення. Нещодавно Світовий банк дав нову оцінку, яка говорить про те, що Україна сьогодні зазнала від повномасштабного вторгнення прямих збитків $152 мільярди, і для відновлення нам знадобиться щонайменше більше ніж $486 мільярдів доларів. Для цього нам надважливо, щоб всі процеси, які стосуються відбудови і відновлення, були максимально прозорими і підзвітними. На сьогодні уряд вже почав впроваджувати систему DREAM, яка була презентована в Лондоні на конференції по відновленню. І для нас на сьогодні є дуже важливо, що вже більше ніж 600 українських громад внесли до цієї системи більше ніж 2,5 тисячі різних проєктів, які пов'язані з відновленням. Сьогодні ми, як законодавці, вбачаємо, що нам потрібно розробити нову законодавчу рамку, новий закон, який буде називатися про основні засади відновлення, де ця державна цифрова система DREAM буде обов'язковою до застосування. застосування. В новому законі про відновлення ми прагнемо також прописати основні принципи відновлення, про які вже сьогодні говорили, це будувати краще, ніж було, це і принципи сталого розвитку, кругової економіки, принципи нового європейського Баухаусу. І саме головне, щоб до формування принципів державної політики відновлення обов'язково були залучені і асоціації органів місцевого самоврядування, і безпосередньо всі наші представники громад. Надзвичайно важливо також підвищити спроможність наших громад планувати відновлення. І я щаслива повідомити, що вже 151 українська громада почала працювати над стратегічними документами, які називаються «Програма комплексного відновлення». Новий закон про засади відновлення якраз зафіксований в Ukraine Facility, і ми, як парламентарі, зробимо все можливе для того, щоб нове законодавство було ухвалене. Дякую.
Thank you very much to Ms. Shuliak, and also to underline the importance of relation between central power and self-government bodies, and we know how you have underlined the importance of ensuring transparency in the use of this big amount of funding that we have for the reconstruction of Ukraine. So we finished the time, and so I would like to move to Professor Georg Milbrat, and you also have a long experience as a regional politician in Germany. So you have stated recently that strong local self-government will be a key factor for a successful reconstruction. So my question is, how could international donors help Ukraine to meet the conditions for effective decentralization, and what concrete deliverables can be expected from the forthcoming Ukraine Recovery Conference in this respect? Thank you, Professor Milbrat.
Thank you very much for the invitation. First of all, I will begin with a congratulation to our Ukrainian partners for having such a successful reform of decentralization and local democracy. It was a dream which was created during the Revolution of Dignity, that Ukraine will become no longer a purely top-down state, but including the bottom-up approach as well. Before the war, it was possible to reorganize the country on the territorial level to create capable romadas, and that was the condition for successful local government. Yet now, during the war, the experience is that this local self-government has not weakened Ukraine, as some politicians feared before, but make Ukraine more resilient and Ukraine more stronger, because the input, the help from the local level was necessary to fight the aggression of the Russians. However, the reform was not finished because of the war, because a crucial element is still missing, that is a constitutional amendment. The constitution dates back to the 90s and has still some post-communist elements. And therefore, it is necessary to define, protect and develop local self-government to have a solid fundament in the constitution. Unfortunately, that's not possible today because of the war. This is the first job after the war. A lot of other laws were mentioned. I would underline that it is necessary to have financial stability and predictability on the one hand side, and a clear definition, a clear separation of own and delegated tasks, because only with this separation the system functions. Own competences, our own competences, which are only limited by law, and delegated competences is something else. Now we are before the Berlin Conference. The Berlin Conference is another step to develop a strategy, a European strategy for reconstruction in Ukraine. And for me, the main task should be from this audience and from the Committee of Region to contribute to this conference with the aspect of local democracy and decentralized government as an important point, an important element of the future development, combining not only the decentralization process, but also the recovery process and the accession to the European Union. That should be one key element of the future policy in Ukraine, and I'm very hopeful that the conference in Berlin will give us new ideas for the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Melbrat, also for underlining the importance of the Berlin Conference and also the constitutional reform and the financial stability for
Als we kijken naar
Ukraine
het financiële herstel binnen Oekraïne, dan werd er ook gesproken over het belang van het zelfbestuur bij de lokale besturen. We hebben nog 1 minuut voor een laatste vraag voor u. Hoe kunnen we de ontwikkeling en het uitrollen van gedeelde projecten voor lokale en regionale besturen te versterken met ook investeringen van bredere niveaus?
Yes, Professor Melbrat.
Well, what do you think? Of course, there is a lot to do, and on the local government side, there is a constraint, that is capacity. And I hope that on the one hand side, it is possible to help the Ukrainian partners, not by money from the local governments in Europe, but by experts and giving advice for this reconstruction process to help them. And therefore I hope that those who are present here will tell this story to the other mayors and regional officers to provide more human capital help to Ukraine. First sentence. Second sentence is to reach private investors. You need stability and security. And therefore, the precondition for successful Ukraine recovery is that this security is guaranteed for the future. And that means that the investor has not to fear that in a few years or few months the war will begin again. And therefore, this political objective, secure and stable Ukraine, is a precondition for all other developments, especially private investment.
Thank you. Thank you, I completely agree. And also the man empowering in the stability framework, very important to go ahead. And so let's move to Viola von Kramon-Taubadel. So thank you to be here. And you are one of the most active MEPs supporting Ukraine. Can you tell us more about the position of the European Parliament in relation to the regional dimension of the reconstruction process?
Yeah, also a big thank you from my side for having me, for having us as a European parliamentarian here. I think it's very important that we have this network of parliamentarians on the national level, but also councillors and representatives of the administration from the local municipalities here in the same room talking to each other. I can only reassure you that we had a very strong emphasis on the inclusion of local and regional authorities in our Ukraine facility. You know, we have negotiated 50 billion, and one of the pillars here was inclusiveness of strong mayors, councillors, administration, and as Professor Milbert has said, yes, the precondition is, of course, capacity building. That is clear, and we have heard many times that before the war, the decentralization project and program was a huge success. It was one of the success stories, I would say also, why Ukrainian citizens outside of Kiev were so resilient. So we need to urgently come back to this, I would say, situation and to this status that we proceed even in war times. We have put this in our facility as well in the text, explicit recognition of a public personal legal entity for territorial entities. That is a long discussion we had for years with our Ukrainian partners, and many people know that for efficient decision-making and for good governance, this is one of the preconditions. And Olena has rightly said that we need a lot of money. We speak about billions and billions and billions of financial means, but if we do not guarantee those investors, be it domestic or be it foreign direct investment, any kind of a good governance, and also to make sure that the stability, of course, is one, the most important thing is to stop the war. But on the other hand, also a level of rule of law in the region, which they can rely on, and that will only work if we have mayors you can trust, if we have transparency, if we have integrity, and not just on paper, but really implemented. And there, I think, at least the European Parliament is a very true alliance on this. And many other things which come to my mind when I think of the decentralization, but of course the priority for all of us is to stop the war and to make sure that the stability and the security, yes, can be actually implemented by now.
Thank you, Ms. von Kramon-Taubadel. So you mentioned the crucial role of mayors. Thank you for that, but also the risk of corruption, so how important is transparency, and you have been very vigilant and vocal on this risk, calling for the involvement of civil society in the auditing mechanisms. So for one more minute, do you think that effective conditionality will be key for modernizing Ukraine? What safeguards can be in that respect?
Very good and very important question. I was saying that one of the emphasis is the role of the decentralized structure. The other emphasis we had included in our Ukraine facility was the role of the civil society, the role of the watchdogs. And here we have a lot of very, very credible NGOs, very knowledgeable NGOs. And I have not seen that there were enough included, for example, in the Ukraine plan. We had a lot of representatives in the European Parliament during the last weeks and months. And when I asked them, are you included? Is your knowledge being included in the Ukraine plan? They all declined. They all said no. So there I would say that the government has a task to use their capacities and their capabilities within the country. For example, everything which is related to the anti-corruption center, the reanimation package, a lot of legal advice is in the country. And here also, as strong and as strict as we were on the local actors, we would also ask and urge the government to include those NGOs who are on the spot and who are definitely need to be more included than in the past.
Yeah, correct. Thank you very much. So now we have the President of the Congress of Local and Regional Authorities, Mr. Koltz. We know the support Ukraine's ambition for strengthened decentralization and local self-government reform. So what would be your suggestions to the co-organizers of the Ukraine Recovery Conference?
Merci tout d'abord au président Cordero pour cette invitation. Mesdames et messieurs, en votre qualité, chers collègues, au nom du Congrès des pouvoirs locaux et régionaux du Conseil de l'Europe, je réitère notre soutien plein et entier aux recommandations de l'Alliance européenne des villes et régions pour la reconstruction de l'Ukraine et nous serons présents à la conférence de Berlin. La coopération du Congrès avec tous les niveaux de gouvernance en Ukraine est de longue date. Elle continuera aussi longtemps que nécessaire. Nous ne soulignerons jamais assez le courage dont fait preuve le peuple ukrainien pour résister à l'agression dont leur pays est victime de la part de la Fédération de Russie. Dans ce contexte de guerre totale, les autorités locales ukrainiennes font pour leur part preuve d'une résilience remarquable qui n'aurait pas été possible sans le processus de décentralisation qui a été engagé en 2014-2015 après la révolution de Maïdan. Ce processus a renforcé les capacités administratives et financières des collectivités locales et a permis à leurs élus de mener le changement dans leur pays. Aujourd'hui, ils continuent à œuvrer pour le développement de leur territoire et la cohésion sociale et sont engagés dans la protection des droits humains de leurs résidents en temps de guerre. Le processus de décentralisation doit se poursuivre dès que possible et dans les meilleures conditions. Chers collègues, les autorités locales connaissent les besoins, les défis, les potentiels de leur territoire. Et c'est vrai d'ailleurs pas seulement en Ukraine, c'est vrai évidemment dans tous les pays européens ou autres d'ailleurs. Donnons-leur en Ukraine les moyens de participer pleinement au processus de prise de décision sur toutes les questions qui les concernent directement. Leur contribution au redressement et à la reconstruction de l'Ukraine n'en sera que plus bénéfique. Chers amis ukrainiens, le Conseil de l'Europe est prêt à continuer à apporter toute son expertise pour de nouvelles réformes qui renforcent dans notre pays le principe de subsidiarité, comme le prévoit la Charte européenne de l'autonomie locale. Cela implique de définir d'abord clairement les pouvoirs, les tâches, les responsabilités ainsi que les ressources attribuées aux différents niveaux de gouvernement et des ressources suffisantes pour les différentes collectivités territoriales. Ça implique aussi, comme l'interlocutrice précédente, d'être très vigilant sur les questions de lutte contre la corruption. Mais lutter contre la corruption, c'est aussi rémunérer de manière correcte les élus, les fonctionnaires et des administrations. Le Centre d'expertise pour la bonne gouvernance au sein du Congrès des pouvoirs locaux et régionaux poursuivra ses activités de coopération et de soutien aux actions pour une bonne gouvernance démocratique, inclusive et participative en Ukraine. Voilà, je dirais en quelques mots comme je vous souhaitais répondre à votre question.
Merci beaucoup, President Koltz, for this important contribution about also the social cohesion and the importance to involve Ukraine in the decision-making process. I'm sorry, but we must recover time. We are late, so I'm moving to the fifth panelist, Matt Chase, CEO Executive Director of the U.S. National Association of Counties. So, first of all, thank you, Mr. Chase, for having made the transatlantic trip to join us today. We are eager to hear about the National Association of Counties' work in relation to Ukraine and in support of democracy around the world. Please.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I want to thank you for your hospitality and to thank the Alliance. Like our EU and our Ukrainian counterparts, our organization shares a strong bond and values with the fight for freedom, for inclusive prosperity, for democracy, and of course local decision-making. My organization represents 40,000 locally elected officials. We employ 2% of the United States workforce, over 3.6 million Americans, and we are really essential in what we call our intergovernmental system of federal, state, and local officials. Our focus is on the balance and sharing of power among those levels of government. I'm here to learn and listen to our EU counterparts and to express our support for our Ukrainian friends. Our U.S. Congress will be debating a major aid package in the next couple of weeks, and we want to make sure that our local elected officials are educated and aware of how the conditions and what is happening in Ukraine impacts us in the United States. In recent years, we've weathered the COVID pandemic, civil unrest. We've experienced a tremendous amount of natural disasters, and we've had a lot of economic uncertainties. But none of this compares to the challenges that the Ukrainians face. We have also been under relentless disinformation attacks, malicious disinformation attacks from the Russians as it relates to our elections. And our organization is essential. We run the elections in the United States at the local level. So we have been working on cybersecurity and other tools to combat this. So I just want to end with my heartfelt thanks for the EU Committee of Regions and also to our Ukrainian friends. Our goal is to build stronger transatlantic partnerships to make sure that our local elected officials are in tune with what's happening in the world and that we offer our support. We would look forward to a knowledge exchange to learn how we can develop together and protect our way of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chase. Thank you for this support from the National Association of Counties, and also the Alliance recommendations encourage the creation of a territorial component within the multi-agency donor coordination platform, and we know how concrete could be the support of your association. We believe in this important bridge we have from within Europe and United States. And now, last but not least, Ms. Dupré, head of the Division for Regional Development and the Multi-Level Governance. How is the OECD currently supporting subnational reconstruction and recovery in Ukraine? And what is your take on the Alliance recommendations?
Thank you, Chair. Dear panelists, dear participants, it's really a pleasure to be here today in Mons for this important event in support of Ukraine. The OECD has long partnered with Ukraine on its efforts to strengthen regional development and decentralization. This work began in the wake of the 2014 Revolution of Dignity, and the progress of Ukraine since then have been very impressive, as have been already highlighted. We have continued our work in the context of the full-scale war. Our report published in December 2022, Rebuilding Ukraine by Reinforcing Regional and Municipal Governance, highlighted how stronger local authorities have contributed to underpin Ukraine's resilience during the war. In the coming months, we are launching the next phase of our cooperation with Ukraine as part of the OECD Ukraine Country Programme that was adopted last year. This programme focuses on Ukraine reconstruction and recovery priorities on 30 different policy areas, including regional development and decentralization. It will support Ukraine's aspiration for OECD and EU accession. As of June 2024, we will be working with the Ministry of Communities, Territories and Infrastructure Development to strengthen the capacity of subnational government to design and implement subnational reconstruction project and to increase the fiscal capacity of subnational government. I would like to express the OECD very strong support for the draft recommendations prepared for today's event and which will be conveyed to the 2024 Ukraine Recovery Conference in Germany. Many of the recommendations presented today by the Alliance are fully aligned with the recommendations of the OECD on regional development and decentralization. Let me highlight very briefly 3 points. First, it's essential to involve local and regional government in the reconstruction process. We know that in 2021, subnational government in Ukraine accounted for more than 2/3 of public investment, which was above the OECD average. So Ukraine is already quite decentralized compared to international standards, and it is crucial to ensure that regional and local authorities continue to be engaged in the different mechanisms that coordinate the reconstruction. Second, crucial to ensure that the resources are spent effectively and transparently, as many panelists already mentioned. This requires, for example, ensuring widespread use of DREAM, the digital one-stop platform to monitor all stages of reconstruction project by regional and local authorities. And last but not least, it's equally important to strengthen the capacities of subnational government and to look at the disparities within the countries. Our report in 2022 identified that while 87% of urban municipalities reported having sufficient human resources to develop investment proposals, this was the case for less than two-thirds of rural municipalities. So we were pleased to see that Ukraine's commitment to further strengthen subnational governance is highlighted now in its decentralization reform roadmap adopted in November 2023. I will stop there. We look very much forward to continuing our cooperation with Ukraine and with all of you on these important priorities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dupré, and thank you also because we know that the OECD has a long experience working on decentralization, and we know that we can collaborate for the Ukraine recovery in terms of democracy, efficiency, accountability, and regional development. So we believe in the OECD support for subnational reconstructions and recovery in Ukraine. And thanks to all the panelists, I ask you to stay with me because now we have 10, 12 discussants in the audience for questions or comments. So I'm asking you kindly to stay in time because we can give the floor to the panelists for reply, for eventual reply. So let's start from the audience, from Alexandra Azarkina, the Deputy Minister of Communities, Territories and Infrastructure Development of Ukraine. Thank you to be here.
Thank you very much for the very rich discussion and very fruitful comments from all panelists. I would like just to underline what was actually already said, but it's very essential for Ukrainian government, which is looking for the ways how to make communities real leaders of the restoration. So first of all, it's Ukraine facility. We're very grateful for European Parliament, but also European Commission and Council for supporting the initiative of European Parliament to have this 20% dedicated to the local restoration. We do understand that Ukraine facility is first of all about the microfinancial aid, but we do believe those funds can be used to strengthen Ukrainian regional policy in line with the cohesion policy of European Union. There are a lot of things to do. We're actually well supported by both European Commission and OECD. We're really working daily with each paragraph. We're trying to build on ability to have this bottom-up approach, but also data-driven approach. I'm very grateful for mentioning the DREAM system, but for sure digital system is very useful. It always helps Ukrainians to bring real reforms, but it's just a tool. So we really need to fill it with the proper content. That's why we're urging all partners to have a look in a concrete projects, pragmatic, business attractive projects for the Berlin URC. Thank you very much and for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Azarkina. So let's look to the concrete projects. Now we have my friend and colleague Alexandra Dulkiewicz, the chair of the core working group of Ukraine, mayor of Gdansk. Thank you, Alexandra, to be here.
Thank you very much, Dario. Thank you very much, all the panelists, for giving not only the plans, but also very concrete plans for Ukrainian decentralization. From my point of view, as a quite new member of the European Union, Poland will turn 20 years as a member of the European Union this year. In my opinion, this is equally important to support something what we already talked a little bit today with Professor Milbrand. Extremely important is to support developing human resources. This is one of the issues which will be definitely crucial for Ukraine, but equally important for the European Union if we're gonna be partners, closer partners, and Ukraine will be member of the European Union. And the only message also we really need to keep in my mind, all of this will be possible, all of this what we are here talking about when the war will be finished. And this is one of the extremely important issue that we always need to keep in our mind and really support Ukraine as much as we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexandra. Thank you very much. You too underlined the importance of men empowering. This is a crucial aspect that Professor Melbrat remember to all of us. And one more minute for Tetiana Yerova Luchenko, the President of the All Ukraine.